I keep forgetting that we have. Hi guys, I keep forgetting. Hello everybody. Welcome to Positive Fandom. I keep forgetting that we have an intro. We actually have an intro, and I'm going to play it.
Oh, okay.
I keep forgetting to play the intro. The intro was made by a very nice gentleman by the name of CJ. And let me just go ahead and play the intro right now. Thank you. I play it.
That's awesome. You can't beat a bit of synthwave. I love it. I absolutely love it. I remember I've been listening to synthwave for such a long time now. I forget how long it is, but I remember I think it started. I saw a trailer for a self-funded movie called Kung Fury, which was kind of making fun of the 80s, and they had like this soundtrack, and I thought, wow, this is like amazing. And it was a synthwave band called Power Glove, and ever since then, like, it took me on a YouTube journey, and I found so many brilliant bands. Like the synthwave sort of covers the gamut of, like, vaporwave, which is like singing, and then you've got like hardcore industrial synth and all that stuff. So I'm a big fan of a band called Gunship, big fan of the band called The Midnight. I've seen them twice in London, actually. Trevor Something. There's so many good ones out there. 80 Stallone is another one. But we have some people in the chat that we should say hello to.
Absolutely, and welcome, of course, guys. I'm Mmmm, and of course, we have Russ Whitfield, as always, with us here on Sunday Brunch, and all of you out there who are here to see the show. We certainly are going to say good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, or good night to Mario Lopez, who
Hey,
says,
Mario.
"Hi, Russ and friends." Yes, hello, and of course, Tom Jr. Jackson. We are all goof people.
The
Tom
man,
Jr.
the
Jackson.
legend.
The man, the legend, my collaborator and friend and moderator. Thank you so much, Tom, as always, for being here. We certainly wouldn't be able to have a Sunday brunch without you. Renz Tolentino is here. Hello.
Hey, Reds.
Renz says, good morning and happy Sunday. And guys, check out Renz on Instagram with his hyper real portrayals. He's an artist of famous people. He's amazing. Renz, you are amazing. Those pictures are fantastic, and I love them so much. Good morning to Retro Nerd Girl.
Hello, Retro Nerd Girl.
She says, good morning, all. I've got my coffee, and I'm ready for Sunday brunch. I'm so glad to hear that. And Retro Nerd Girl just put out a video that you guys really need to check out on her channel. And excuse me for not having it ready right before we started to stream. All of a sudden my internet went out, so I couldn't get anything. But Retro Nerd Girl has a video called Why Conan the Barbarian 1982 is a masterpiece. It's a movie review with spoilers and a retrospective deep dive. She just posted it, guys. Go to Retro Nerd Girl's channel and see this deep dive review. I promise you're not going to be disappointed. I can't wait to watch it myself. So
do you know what? It hasn't popped up in my feed, and clearly Retro Nerd Girl and I sheath our swords in the same scabbard or park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay, because I think Conan the Barbarian is one of the greatest films of all time. I don't care what anybody says. I love that movie. The soundtrack by Basil Polidorus is just chef's kiss good. And I have seen that film so many times. Back in the 80s, me and my friends watched it over and over and over and over again. Can quote every single line of it. I've got the DVD special edition that has all of the special features and a pretty crap commentary, because Arnold Schwarzenegger is not an engaging guy to have on a commentary, because all he says is, "Oh, do you remember this guy? This guy was really funny," and that's kind of all he talks about the entire time. But it is great movie, and Retro Nerd, I can't wait to watch it, man. I really can't. Because I love your stuff. I know we agree on many things, which is always nice. But I'm looking forward to watching that one.
I am too. I can't say enough about Conan, especially the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is the one we're talking about here. Last night, I watched a watch party with Lorena Creole on her channel. That was The Predator, the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers, the whole gang.
Hmm.
And it was an absolute, masculinity fest of beautiful bodies, mature men with experience.
So yeah,
And
sweating in the jungles of Valverde. I bet you were all over it, weren't you?
they were sweaty as the show went on. They had less and less shirts on. Every man was just pulsating. And if it wasn't sweat, they were oiled down. It was beautiful. These men were so well conditioned, Russ.
Hmm.
This is something to get to that level of fitness is certainly something to be admired. Carl Weathers is still going strong, guys. We are so lucky to have had men like these who took their careers to a certain level with their physical conditioning. And we also got to see a lot of masculinity. We saw camaraderie. And I was also mentioning how important the service, or at least the military, because you couldn't just have any group of men go and get or retrieve the senator or whoever they're supposed to get out in the jungle. It had to be experienced people in the military who knew what they could do or what needed to be done and do a mission. But I do have to say that 80s vibe in it was so satisfying. I feel kind of the same way with Conan, especially in Conan, where in quite a few of the films, there are women who are fighting with swords and, like it's fun. You get a variety of different types of people in Conan. Not everybody is a warrior. Some people are just beautiful. Some people are more subservient, whatever it is. You have kings, you have people who crave power. It's just a beautiful foray into a fantasy world lit up with fun and excitement. Guys, definitely check out Retro Nurgle's channel. Watch Conan again. Enjoy it. I promise you, you will love it again and again and again, as we have been loving it. So we certainly are excited to see that.
Mm.
And let's say hello to everyone else. That Conan thing really, when I saw that alert, Retro Nerd Girl, you really got my attention. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm so happy to see that. And of course, I'm happy to see all of you this morning as well, guys. Certainly, let me just pan down here. Keely Chow is with us here
Oh,
this
hey,
morning.
Keely.
Oh, hi, Keely Chow. So good to see you. And if I am correct, we should be saying roll tide to you, Keely Chow. I sure hope I'm saying the right person. But it is great to see you today. We also have Darth Plato. Oh boy, Darth Plato getting up. How do you say yawn in Latin? I don't know.
I don't know, but we can say Salve Darth Plato,
You say
as has
yawn
become tradition.
verite.
Yes, yeah,
Yawn
long
verite.
verite.
I don't know what you would say, but yes. So good to see you, Darth Plato. I'm just kind of winging that one there. Our scholar, just as you are to me. Gary Bando Sandwich is here with us this morning. Good morning, Gary. Gary
It's
says,
afternoon for Gary, and I don't know how it is with you, Gal, but it's brutally hot here in southwest London. It's horrible. I know, we Brits get to moan about the weather all of the time, but I do not enjoy this at all. I'm not feeling so well today. I didn't sleep too well last night. I literally had a dodgy Chinese, and that coupled with the weather, not a fun time.
wow, that is tough. I emphasize with you because, as you know, I've had my sick days on the show.
Hmm.
So we promise, Russ, we are not going to keep you here for 2 hours. We're gonna make sure. And if you're not feeling well, just we
We'll see how we
understand.
go. I'm not dying, but as I say, I feel pretty. Yeah, bleh. But let's push on, because it's interesting you mentioning Carl Weathers. There's something that we do want to talk about today that kind of indirectly involves Carl. So I guess we push on through the intros and then get cracking.
Absolutely, Gary. Thank you for saying like back to the 80s show. Absolutely, Gary. We certainly do love that here on this channel. And it's good to see all of you. The Hidden is here.
Oh,
Hello.
hey.
Hope you are well, The Hidden. And Stubble McShave is here with us, a supporter of the channel. He says, hi, guys. I can only stay for a few minutes. Even a few minutes is good with you, Stubble. So I'll
Well,
leave it at
you
that.
stumble like Arnold Schwarzenegger says in The Running Man. You can always catch it in a rerun.
That is correct. I'll take what I can get from you, Stubble, and I'll leave it at that. Um, I am Mika, says peace and long life to all. Yes, peace and long life to you. I am Mika. Certainly glad to see you here this morning. We also have, what else do we have here? BC, aka the new Dark Shadow. Hello, everybody. He says 78 days until Halloween. That is correct for those of you guys who prepare for Halloween. Certainly, you've been preparing since June. You guys have been preparing since June. So, and certainly do check out Lorena Creel's YouTube channel, guys. I mentioned her earlier as well. Woodrow is here. Good morning. Woodrow says hello live. I tuned into Retro Nerd Girl to hear a rare accent for a streamer. Absolutely. She has such a lovely voice.
It is a voice made for audiobooks. I'll give it that. There are a few of them out there, and I think Retro Nerd Girl could do a decent sideline in narrating audiobooks. I'd certainly buy a few of those.
Most certainly. And I would want to hear her commentary about the book even before it. And so I want her to write that introduction for me. And she does also say, hey, Russ, hope you feel better soon.
Well, the wine didn't help. So it's kind of like, I didn't know I was going to feel ill, right? But the Chinese made me so ill, and then like wine on the top of it. I was like, ugh. Yes, and peace out to you, Darth Plato too.
That's what that means. Okay, great. Thank you for the translation. And Mario Lopez talks about how disappointed he was.
Conan the Destroyer. Yeah, they went down the sort of toy route with Conan the Destroyer, and it was much more of a comic book vibe. I think actually the guy that was writing Conan for Marvel Comics at the time had a hand in that screenplay. Now there are more knowledgeable Conan fans out there than me, but I'm sure that it was one of the guys that was writing the comic sort of wrote the screenplay for that, and it went through so many iterations. In the end, it was just not. The tone was entirely different from Barbarian in Destroyer, but Basil did the music. The music was brilliant. They kind of changed the theme a little bit, much more upbeat and a more cartoonish movie, and not what we wanted. And we never did get Conan the King.
No, we didn't. And Darth Plato mentions Red Sonja was Conan 3, and I loved Red Sonja.
It was, but they couldn't. Again, there's this Conan rights issue. So Schwarzenegger was in it playing a guy called Calidor, who was basically Conan, but not, because they couldn't get the rights to Conan.
Exactly. And Retro Nerd Girl says, you guys are making me blush. Thank you all for the kind words. They are well-deserved, my dear. Certainly well-deserved.
Absolutely.
And Mikey Leo is here with us. Hey, Mikey Leo. Good morning. He says, and hello, Russ. Well, good morning to you, Mikey Leo. We certainly do appreciate you being here. And Mario Lopez just asked a quick question about Sucker Punch. He loves Sucker Punch. I love Sucker Punch.
Especially the director's cut is brilliant.
Yeah, he says, if it came out now, would it be received as a woke film? I have no idea what they would say about it. They could go both ways and say it's about female empowerment. They could go another way and say, it's woke. I don't know what they would say. I just wish they would make films like that to boggle people into trying to figure out what the hell this film is supposed to be saying. It's not saying anything at all. It's just for entertainment value for me. What about you, Russ?
I think it would get attacked. Pretty much for being sort of exploitative and having those girls running around in those outfits that he had them running around. I mean, that's sort of the point of it was a commentary on that kind of culture, right? And that's what he was doing there. I love the film. I mean, it's a really Snydery film, as all of his films are, I guess. But that one, he had free reign to go crazy, and he absolutely did. It's not my favorite Zack Snyder movie, I'll say, but I rather think it would get attacked simply because of it would be seen as exploitative, which is kind of missing the point. It's a comment on exploitation, but I don't, because it's Snyder and he's such a divisive director, I reckon it'd get a bit of a kick in, but I could be wrong. What do you think? That would be. What do you think, Mario?
Let's see. I guess he will. I guess he will comment
Hmm.
in there. And we also have Nathan Trujillo. Hi, Nathan. How are you? He says, "Hey, hey! I finally made it back to a live stream after a couple of weeks. Well, it's always great to have you back, Nathan. We do love having you here on the channel and here for a Sunday brunch, guys. There is so much to talk about going on. And honestly, Russ, I don't know, where would you like to start? What is on your mind this Sunday?
A couple of things. As we mentioned, Carl Weathers earlier on, I guess we can touch on this issue that Stallone is currently having. There was a little bit of a spat on Twitter between Sylvester Stallone, Dolph Lundgren, and Robert or the Winkler family. The the thing being there is that obviously everybody knows the sort of story of Rocky and or Stallone, you know, struggling writer, struggling actor, wrote this genius screenplay, wouldn't give up the rights to it, you know, wanted to star in it. And I say he didn't go up the rights. He made a deal where he was going to star in the movie, but I think the Winkler family still owns the rights or a lot of the rights to the Rocky franchise. So Stallone doesn't own his own character. And recently there was some controversy where it came out that they were making a spin-off about Ivan Drago, Dolph Lundgren's character, and I guess his son that appeared in the second Creed movie, to which Stallone of which Stallone had no knowledge, and he went on the attack, like on social media, literally calling the Winkler family, you know, bloodsuckers, and you know, like you just ruining these characters that I invented. And he was especially cross with Dolph Lundgren because apparently Dolph hadn't said anything to Stallone about this, you know. And Dolph quickly came out with not so much a retraction, just saying, "Look, you know, I thought you were involved," um, which I don't know if anybody believed or not, but he was definitely trying to smooth things out with Sly there. And lest we forget, 10 or so years ago, all of these guys were, apart from Stallone, were doing straight to DVD movies. Some of which are awesome, by the way. I'm a big fan of Dolph Lundgren's. He's a decent actor, but they weren't particularly high profile. And then Stallone basically threw everybody a lifeline, and I'm talking everybody: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dolph Lundgren, Wesley Snipes, Mel Gibson. You know, so many Antonio Banderas, so many people that were not doing so well. And those Expendables movies that Stallone came up with and got funded off the back of Rocky Balboa and John Rambo. Um, you know, his cachet was high once again, and he really helped everybody out. So I'm not surprised Stallone felt a little bit betrayed, if indeed uh, Dolph was doing something behind his back. It's not cool. I think I was saying to you the other day offline, are a lot of people go, it ain't show friends, it ain't, you know, it's show business, and I kind of get that, but there's a part of me, having been involved in some contract negotiations and things like that, and been ripped off myself a number of times. It it just seems to be an excuse to treat people poorly, and I've never quite understood that. I was looking at this. Why would you put clauses in the contract that are going to screw people over when you don't really need to do that? I'm always reminded of the guy who conceived the King's Speech, and a certain producer who was outed in the Me Too thing. I'm not going to say his name in case we get into trouble for saying his name, but he signed a deal with that POS, and basically the film went on to make, you know, a gazillion dollars, of which the people who made the movie never got to see any of that money, whereas the guy who was, you know, the POS producer guy, ended up making tens and hundreds of millions out of it. It's just, I don't know why, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a shame that we're seeing situations like this keep popping up and problems, especially when it comes to rights that people, things that should probably be renegotiated.
Yeah.
Um, you know, especially after a certain amount of time. And I'm almost wondering why there isn't a clause that says, like, after 5 years, this can be renegotiated. And you know, at least
Because
giving
it wouldn't be
somebody.
in the interest of the people in power, and I think that's kind of the point. Why would the people in power ever want to change the status quo? So you've got creatives that are coming to people with money trying to get their project off the ground, and obviously the people with the money are always going to make the contracts in favor of themselves. So they would never do anything like that. In the case of Rocky, the character Rocky Balboa, I think, all right, Sly, you signed a deal and it was a bad deal and that's the end of it. And you shouldn't have signed it. Well, that's easy to say now, nearly 50 years after the event or whatever it is. But with Rocky, the character, he is not simply a movie character. He's much like, Superman or whatever. He is an American icon. In
Yes.
fact, a world icon. I mean, everybody, you talk to any boxer that's alive today, they're probably boxers because they watched Rocky. It's the same as if you ask anybody um, of my era why they started doing martial arts, they'll tell you because of Bruce Lee. And if you're younger than me and you're doing it, it's because of Jean-Claude Van Damme. And Jean-Claude Van Damme took it up. Why? Because of Bruce Lee, right? So I just think in the case of Rocky, the right should return to the originator because he's so much more than just a character in a film. He is the embodiment of the American dream and was conceived and brought to life at a time when nobody particularly believed in that. It was the 70s that you and I often talk about, the era of the exterminator and Death Wish and all that kind of thing. And that's what the world was very grim. American cinema was very dour for the most part, looking down. And heroes like Rocky were passe. And yet here he is, 50 or well, nearly coming up to 50 years later. We're still talking about Rocky. We still love Rocky. We still watch his movies. So yeah, I think the rights should return to him.
And Russ, recently on a visit to the U.S., you managed to. Am I incorrect in saying that you went to one of the filming locations of Rocky here?
No, I would have loved to have. I didn't actually make it there. I was so close to it, but I didn't actually get to the steps. And I would have loved to have gone to the steps in Philadelphia. But when I was in Philadelphia, I absolutely fell in love with the city. I've only ever felt like that in one other city in the United States, and that was San Francisco. And the thing about Philadelphia was it almost felt like I was in London, but not. It had all the like really nice things that I would recognize and feel at home at in England, but also it was, it had a very American feel to it as well. So I'm currently trying to sort my life out over here so I can get to move back to the States as I was before.
Oh,
So fingers crossed I can make that happen. I just need to, I need to sort a few things out over here first, like i.e. Airbnb in this place, really.
interesting. And it is interesting that we are still talking about Rocky. Sylvester Stallone's any characters that he seems to touch seem to turn to gold, platinum, whatever you want to call it. Recently, there's been a resurgence in some of his figures for the Rambo series. And even he himself has commissioned his own version of the Rambo 1/6 scale figure.
Has he really? I didn't know.
Yes, he has his own version, and there are third-party ones as well as I think it might be either Hot Toys or Sideshow. It's a character that isn't going to go away and continues to have quite a profound influence. As an actor, he is someone who has had an influence in a way that few actors have. His physical image represents so many things to so many people,
But he
everybody. I just
said,
want to say, and
"Oh,
I'm sorry,
sorry."
Zachara 315, hello. I just want to say hello to a few more people who have jumped in. Good morning to you, Zachara 315. And Benjamin Wolf talks about not being able to get a Blu-ray extended cut of this particular Conan, Muley's Conan. And I know
Milius is, John Milius, the director, yeah.
And he says the few extra minutes did a surprising amount of work to flesh out Conan as more than just a brute. And Chips Bewick is here with us this morning. Says greetings, true believers. Absolutely, Chips Bewick, greetings to you. And we also have, I think there was one more person. I just want to make sure. No, okay, I think that's everybody. If I missed somebody, guys, please do. Oh yes, Benjamin. I just said Benjamin Wolf. Okay, yes. And so honestly, when I think about just Sylvester Stallone in general, I just hope he gets what he's trying to get so he can do what he wants to do with these
Yeah,
characters.
look at RM. It's not about money for Stallone. I mean, the man's got more money than God, and he sort of said it's not about the money. It's about how pe- people can come along and do whatever they want with this legacy character that he created. You talk about him as an actor, but he really looks at himself more as a writer. Does Stallone? He said this on many occasions. And if you ever watch any interviews of people that have worked with him, they all talk about how hard he works and how talented he is, but also how he doesn't. He's a bit of a hard taskmaster. Like working on the set of a Stallone movie is not a nice or pleasant process for the most part, because he drives everybody on his set. If he's directing, he'll drive you as hard as he drives himself. But bearing in mind, when he was doing the Expendables, the guy broke his neck. I mean, he's got so many injuries from putting himself through the mill on his movies. You just have to admire the guy. And I just wanted to dial it back. Mario reckons, we were talking about Snyder earlier on. Mario probably correctly identifies that it would get attacked pretty much by everybody, and there would be the typical social media bun fight. I'm extrapolating here, Mario, about people saying no, 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 it's a commentary, as I would say, and people just saying no, he's a sexist hack that just wanted to see chicks in skimpy outfits. So yeah, you are bang on, my friend.
And Ed Brewer says, hello, Ed Brewer. Hello to
Hey,
you.
Ed.
Ray Tango don't need the cash.
Such a great film. And apparently, same thing happened on that one as happened on Rambo 2, both of which were directed by a guy called George Cosmatos, and who also directed Tombstone, right? But as it turns out, I think Cosmatos was Tango and Cash. I certainly know he was Rambo. Anyway, um, he never ended up directing them. Stallone ended up directing all of those movies, and Tombstone, that he was the director of. Apparently, Kurt Russell ended up directing it. So he's kind of like a sort of front man that they put up. But yeah, doesn't matter though. Tango and Cash apparently was a complete mess behind the scenes, and not the film that they intended to make at all. But whatever they did come out with was completely awesome. I love that film. I haven't seen it in a long time now. I'd love to, yeah, I must watch it again, and I just hope they don't do a remake. That'd be awful.
Absolutely. Absolutely, everybody. Certainly, there is a lot to be said about, we're kind of having a throwback morning here with Sylvester Stallone and
Mm.
Arnold and, so much of this stuff that we love. Um, uh, Retro Nerd Girl says, by the way, Stallone's latest film looks fantastic. It's called Samaritan.
He's
Yes.
a superhero, yeah, like a retired superhero. I'm looking forward to it as well, Retro No Girl.
I'm looking forward to it. I hadn't necessarily heard much about it, but if you are saying it looks good, Retro Nerd Girl, then I know what to expect. So thank you for doing that work and letting me know that it is great. Ed Brewer says something about Astro City.
I'm not sure what we're referring to there, Ed. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too, but maybe someone knows. And also, I wasn't quite sure if I said hello to Benjamin Wolf. I think I might have already, but I just want to make sure I have that covered. But certainly, I think if not the individual actor fighting or trying to get the rights to some of these IPs, we're going to see a lot of these estates fighting for these
Mm.
rights. And perhaps those won't be as publicized. The estate fights for it sometimes after the death of a entertainer who wants to get the rights back. The children, and as far as the children are concerned, they have rights to some of these IPs just out of being a descendant of this person. And now, technically speaking, that person may never have received anything at all, honestly, from what we're seeing in a lot of cases, as you mentioned, Russ.
Well,
And
this is
now
what
they're,
happened with Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster.
yes,
Who sold the rights to Superman for like which was a decent amount of money back in the day. Oh, thanks, Ed.
thank you
W-
so
was was
much.
a was a decent amount of money back, or a fair amount of money back in the day. But then they went on to make billions out of Superman, and they had to go to court. And again, it ain't show friends, it's show business. And you just think, well, if you're Warner Brothers, you look, what these guys, they've come to us, they're saying they're looking for more money. Okay, fine. We'll give them $10 million each, and then Schuster and Siegel would have disappeared off into the sunset. Warner Brothers would have been looked at like the most heroic and lovely company in the whole world. And we see this all the time with Marvel. They adapted the Winter Soldier storyline, and the guy that invented the Soldier storyline never got a penny for it. You know,
Yeah,
it doesn't seem fair. Um,
it
but I
certainly
think,
isn't fair. It's
mm,
not fair. And then you're right, Russ. It doesn't seem fair, and we know something's wrong. And the company themselves also must know something is wrong. And these contracts need to be written in such a way that can produce a legacy. Like, for example, I know there was a famous child actor whose name is escaping me, but even he could see the error in a child actor making millions of dollars only for it to be spent by other people. So by the time that child is 18, there is nothing left of their money.
mm,
And so that became a law. I think it might have been Jackie Coogan, guys. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that he was one of the few people who tried to or did successfully create a law saying that if you're a child actor and you make money, a certain amount of it has to be saved for you by the time you turn 18.
yeah, put
So
into escrow or something. You know, that nobody can touch. I guess.
exactly. And perhaps something like that going forward in certain situations, let's say one or two generations out, needs to be done for the legacy of these creators, essentially not just creators, but oftentimes people who are playing the roles of these characters. So certainly that's something that should be considered and be part of the expenses if we're making or budgeting going
I,
forward.
it's interesting, isn't it, when you were talking about the children of the creator and the rights and all that sort of thing, because you can see the results of it with Amazon and their Rings of Power series, how sort of Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's son, was a hectic gatekeeper of the Tolkien property. I think he even hated the Peter Jackson films, which were a pretty faithful and beloved adaptation by most people. And Christopher Tolkien didn't like that, but sadly he's now passed away. And it seems like Amazon now have sort of seized on that because the Tolkien estate itself is less of a gatekeeper than Christopher Tolkien himself was, and now they're sort of trying to run roughshod over. I don't think Christopher Tolkien would have stood for any of this. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, certainly. And and who could have guessed it? Tolkien didn't know that this was going to be happening. No one suspected, and I'm sure his descendants did not suspect that this might be happening after their passing. And for all we know, there could be clauses in the contracts that say that it cannot be extended past the lifetime of certain individuals. There are all these details in closed doors and contracts that we can't read. But I think it is very interesting that these contracts do have a lot of caveats for some, but not for others. So
Mhm.
this is something that really does need to be explored, especially for the people who depend on this money to survive and truly do have rights to it. KR Nut 82 says, hello, everybody. Hello. KR Nut, so nice to have you here in the morning. And Ed Brewer was the person who pointed out that Astro City has to do with this character called the Samaritan. And thank
Mhm.
you, Ed Brewer, for pointing that out. And I'm looking forward to that. And someone mentioned something about, where is it? Oh, yes. Chips says that he wishes they would put it in theaters. Now, is this going direct to, it's not going into theaters? Do you know, Russ?
I don't. I imagine Chips is probably spot on. There was some talk about that as well, as to do with the Grey Man. That should have got a much longer theatrical run than it did. So yeah, and with Prey as well, the new Predator movie, that didn't. I think there's a bit of reticence to release these things, and I think Hollywood's notoriously conservative when it comes to doing anything like that. And I reckon the Hulu or Disney, Fox, are probably kicking themselves that they didn't put Predator Prey out in the cinemas now, because it would have been a huge multi-million-dollar movie. People, the buzz is good, and the few sort of dissenting voices that are trying to claim that it's woke garbage have been sort of drowned out in the general in the reality that it's not woke garbage. It's actually it was marketed as woke garbage, but not. You've seen it now yourself. The evidence speaks for itself. So yeah, I wish that one had come out too. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, Chips, but they're pretty conservative.
Yes, and we've seen what can happen for a film when the actors are given that leeway to promote it. Certainly I'm not saying that it's the same as Maverick, but let's just say Top Gun Maverick, we had Tom Cruise who went out of his way to be part of that promotional team, making sure the film premiered at Cannes this year, and then going the extra step of being in every city when it premiered there makes a big difference in promoting a film and having the excitement again of a Hollywood blockbuster. It's so important to these movie theaters. It's so important to everybody who works on these productions to have that and for it to be successful going forward. So I certainly advocate for any film to be in the theater, even if it is just for 2 weeks. At least give it a chance. Let it have a chance in a screen. Now, Tom Jr. Jackson talks about how Lucasfilm is re-releasing Rogue One in IMAX. And Russ, you and I think, are either going to do a watch party or a review of Rogue One before the Andor series premieres on September 21st. Certainly taking a look at Rogue One, which this is kind of a standalone Star Wars film, a standalone, if you will. It's not part of a sequel. It's not a prequel story. It's a standalone story. And you and I have talked about Rogue One at length. Certainly something to think about with the Andor series coming out, and probably most significantly because Cassian Andor appears in Rogue One. But it's great that they're bringing this back to the theaters. We have seen a lot of Star Wars films go back into the theater, and it is great that they're doing that. So it is possible to take a film, regardless of how old it is. And of course, Turner Classic Movies would be the one that I would say that puts films that are 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60 years old, puts it back in the theater for people to go and see as a sort of like a short film festival, for people to experience that.
Definitely the best of the Disney Star Wars movies, I think. I wonder if they're going to touch up the special effects, because they did have Tarkin and Princess Leia in there, and some people said they had a touch of the uncanny valley about those characters. I thought they were pretty good, actually, pretty convincing. But I wonder if they'll have another do over with the special effects on that.
Certainly, it's certainly something to think about. And of course, a lot of people are very excited about the Andor series that's coming up. And of course, we have spoken about the Andor series on the show, especially some of the comments that were made by the cast and crew, some of the cast and crew, not everyone. But there is still a lot of hope for this series. Nathan Trujillo absolutely says,
as Mikey says, we can't judge it until we've seen it. My only comment was, as we made, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, don't come out and say things like that. It's just such a ridiculous thing. And whether it's true or not, let people make up their own mind. I know Robert Meyer Burnett talks a lot about this when he's talking about Star Trek. Just tell your story. And if you meant it to be, anti-president, whoever it happens to be, that's absolutely fine. But let the audience come to that conclusion on their own, because going out and saying, we hate this particular president and this film is all about how much of an arsehole this particular political figure is, well, the people in your region that like that particular guy are instantly going to be turned off of this. So I would say nothing.
I would say nothing. And if you are compelled to say something, sometimes an approach makes a big difference. For example, it's okay to say, something, I didn't agree with all of the policies that the former president had. I didn't agree with all of them. And you're not necessarily singling out necessarily the president per se, maybe even the administration. It's a group of people who are doing all this work. But you're not necessarily saying that you have anything against an individual, because it's an entire government that makes the policies go through or not.
Well, you're correct, but I think the point was that they were singling out that particular guy. But we keep talking about him. Let's move on.
Right. I'm just saying that even when you do feel frustrated and you have to say something, I have noticed that a lot of the people in the chat here, and you and I as well, may say, that wasn't one of my favorites. And I think that sometimes wording can speak volumes, but doesn't necessarily have to be insulting or single out someone unnecessarily and maybe even unjustifiably. So so we do want to hear your comments, guys, even if it doesn't agree with ours, things that you're frustrated with. But like Mikey Lito says, Russ, watch it before you can
watch content, form opinion.
guys.
Yeah, especially we encourage people that have a different viewpoint. That is like so important because um, the way social media is these days is people they don't debate anything anymore. They don't try to show somebody else their point of view. People have become so hardened. So I welcome people that don't like Snyder. Let's pick on that. Right, great. If you don't like it, it's fine. I'll tell you why I love it. You tell me why you don't, and then we can agree to disagree or maybe find some common ground. I think that's really, really important.
That is true. Nathan wants to see it. And Chip says, I hope that they release Rogue One in his area. Absolutely, guys. We also have, let's see, Benjamin Wolf has a comment about Amazon's claim that they ghosted Peter Jackson. So this is one of the articles that I sent you today, Russ. Although I doubt that you have had time to read it. It
I'm
has to do
familiar with the story, though.
Well, wonderful. It has to do with season 4 of the
It was Rings
Game
of
of
Power,
Thrones,
wasn't
right?
it? No. This was
Oh,
the Amazon reached out to Peter
oh,
Jackson to sort of try
yeah,
to legitimize their new story and said, listen, we could really
yes,
use your
that's right.
help. We're going to send you some screenplays and blah blah blah. And then they released, whatever, and then they never contacted him back. And
Exactly.
I think that the media has sort of seized on this and say, it's been ghosted and all the rest of it. But Jackson himself was pretty blasé. He was like, well, yeah, please do send me some scripts. Love to read them. And they didn't send me the scripts, and well, so what? I think that was the story as far as Jackson was concerned. But
And
Rings of Power is picking up such negative fan reaction. Like the Access media is desperately trying to convince us that it's the greatest thing ever. And the more that Amazon throws at this, and the more shilling that's going on, the kids talk about positions hardening. The more damage they seem to be doing. It's becoming a little bit embarrassing, I think, for Amazon.
it is. This was not of course, this is not the article I was referring to, but we did talk about this one as well before, but I don't know. I don't remember all the details. What I can say is that anytime you can get Peter Jackson to listen to you're very lucky. He is, a genius, and for him to even make any comments or suggestions would be something. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't want him involved in this from the get-go. But it is what it is. We know what we would get if Peter had his hand in this.
Well, I think this is rather the point, isn't it? So this has become very, very popular. This quote from Peter Jackson now, when he says, Pippa and Fran and himself that wrote and conceived the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Obviously they have their political viewpoints, and he came out and said, we agreed from the beginning we were not going to put any of our own messaging or politics into these movies. These were going to be for J.R.R. Tolkien, and literally the Rings of Power people have come out and said, exactly the opposite, that it is going to be full of their politics and their beliefs and how it's going to reflect what they want and what they believe. So if you follow that around to this comment here by Benjamin, I imagine that they don't want to hear from Peter Jackson, because Peter Jackson would have taken one look at this and said, well, Tolkien would not have approved of this, guys. And, I really don't think he would have. That's why they got rid of Tom Shippey and replaced him with, the activist lady. And I, I, I just think they just thought, oh, there's no point really, because if it comes out that we sent the script to Peter Jackson and he thinks it's a bag of shit, then that's going to make us look bad, little knowing how bad things were going to get for them down the line, even before the thing has been released. So yeah, Mikey, consume the content and form opinion and all that kind of stuff, but the writing very much seems to be on the wall for this.
Now
I'm kind of 80-20 as to whether this is going to be any good or not, put it that way.
we see now what I was referring to, and somehow I associated it with this. I'm not quite sure why I did, but it has to do with George R. R. Martin and the article that came out about him and season 4 of Game of Thrones, and how he was kind of kept out of the loop, so to speak, on that. And I couldn't help it. This, for some reason, this comment made by Benjamin made me feel like, like it feels like a similar situation, in the sense of he's should be involved in what you would think, from that story, but then all of a sudden in season 4, suddenly he's not involved or is kept out of the loop about decisions that were being made. I can't imagine the Lord of the Rings stories on video without Peter Jackson.
Mm.
So it seems very odd to imagine Martin not being involved with Game of Thrones. It for me, it feels kind of similar, but I think it's interesting to find out. Of course, I guess the NDA stuff has expired this week, and now he can talk about season 4. I guess maybe there's a time, like 3 or 4 years or something, where he can verbalize this and say what has happened. But I think it's interesting. I wonder if anybody in Amazon thought that was even going to be brought up. I certainly think that the Game of Thrones people are very surprised that Martin is saying this now at this point, right when they're supposed to be having something new coming out. But I think it's very interesting that we're finally hearing more comments from creators who have been successful with these IPs,
Mm-hmm.
and that they too have frustrations, just like we do when we watch certain things in these IPs going forward. Frustrations we didn't have prior to, let's say, their lack of involvement or their obstruction for being involved in bringing these IPs to an adaptation on video, what we feel is in the best light or in a better way. So, these little things do make a difference. These subtle things that happen make a difference in productions. And we see it across the board, unfortunately. But it certainly is something to think about when you're watching these shows, and what can happen along the way as to why things turn out the way they do. The Hidden has a sports question, which we are more than happy to answer. The Hidden asked, what do you think about college sports when they generate money? How should college sports money be disseminated? And my answer has always been, they should always give the player a certain percentage of the money. They're generating millions of dollars off of these players, from soup to nuts. They can reuse the footage, use their image, use their jerseys, their names going forward. It's so much money. Russ, what do you think about this?
College sports aren't so much of a thing here in England, but if it was me and my money, certainly I would make sure that the team and the players that they were that they were exploiting were making some money out of that. But if they are making millions and millions and millions and millions, a lot of that should go back into the campus itself, but also to fund youth sports in inner city and poorer areas where kids don't necessarily have access uh, to those sorts of facilities. I mean, things like American football, cost money. It's not like soccer over here where you can put down, jumpers for goalposts and all you need is a football. It's not like that. You need all the kit to go with it, don't you? So I think, maybe use some of the money for that, but I'm not really qualified to talk on it.
Yes. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. The Hidden, we certainly do see here in the United States, when there's any kind of draft of college students into the professional line of sports, there's a lot of money involved from that step. But it's always been debated as to whether or not college students should be paid money. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point, they're practically like professional athletes. Their games are televised. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Stop making them seem like they're not pro athletes at this point. They are, and give them the money that they deserve. That's how I feel about it. I welcome any other comments about that too. Honestly, The Hidden, I'm wondering how you feel about it. Now, Chips Bewick makes a point about whether rights return to the originators after 30 years. I think, and Mike Alito says, guys, go ahead and check out E.T. It's in the theaters now. Certainly worth seeing.
Yeah, I'll be crying if I go and see that. Film always makes me cry. I'm not going to lie. When you think he's dead and all that, and he's not dead, but you're still crying.
Yes. And Tom says you can check out the trailer for The Samaritan. And what else were we? Something, Russ, we were talking about It's funny because some of the actors are kind of going from story to story. Although Sean Bean wasn't in Game of Thrones, I think he got killed. I could be wrong. I don't remember if he was
He was
how
killed
long
off in he was killed off in
season
season one. He
one,
was the
right?
he was the main protagonist, and
Yeah,
you know,
I was kind of disappointed he was killed off so soon. But it's ironic because there is this article that or comment that Sean Bean made about intimacy coordinators, and there's been a lot of chatter about intimacy coordinators over the past week or so, not just because of what Sean Bean has been saying, but we do and have been seeing actors come forward and talk about how they felt exposed during particular intimate scenes. And I think it's very interesting. But what makes it so interesting is that as Sean Bean's comments about how he responds to or feels the impact that intimacy coordinators are having on the sets. Russ, have you had a chance to look at what Sean Bean has said about this?
yeah, I have. Why don't you let the audience know what his vibe was and what the response was? Have you got that far into it yet?
Yes, I have the article here, what they were talking about. And of course, it has to do with Sean Bean's claim that intimacy coordinators spoil the spontaneity of a sex scene. And there was an interview in the UK Times where he talks about how an intimacy coordinator personally inhibits him more. And that I think he says, I should imagine it slows down the thrust of it, not the thrust. That's the wrong word. He says, somebody saying, do this, put your hand there while you touch this thing. And he says, I think the natural way lovers behave would be ruined by someone bringing it right down to a technical exercise. And he compared, I'm reading from the article, guys. He compared his experiences with intimacy coordinators to his time filming the 1993 adaptation of Lady Chatterley's Lover, where he says, Lady Chatterley was spontaneous. It was a joy. We had good chemistry between us. I can't remember who his co-star was in that. And we knew what we were doing was unusual because she was married, I was married, but we were following the story he shared. After being reminded by the interviewer, this is continuing the article, that intimacy coordinators are there to protect people from any sexual misconduct, Bean responded, I suppose it depends on the actress. And he also bashed the use of censorship for nudity and sex, giving a scene on the TV series Snowpiercer where he and the actress were naked with mangoes as an example. And he says, I think they cut it out. Often the best work you do where you're trying to push the boundaries and the very nature of its experimental gets censored when TV companies or the advertisers say it's so much. It's a nice scene, quite surreal, dreamlike and abstract, and mango-esque. So, after hearing Sean Bean make these comments, I can't remember what day he made it. Of course, there were other actors who had said, well, the intimacy coordinators, are there, for a reason and they're needed. And I don't think he was saying that they weren't needed. So that doesn't necessarily respond to what Sean Bean is implying, or at least from what I could see he was saying. He was saying that it spoils the mood and that it actually changes the original direction, let's say, of what the director or the author or the creator intended for the scene. And there may be a lot of truth to that. I think there is a lot of truth to that. I think that when you add another person in there who's just supposed to be making sure that nothing happens that is inappropriate, so to speak, if they intervene at a critical moment, it can be very critical. And I've talked to a few directors about this and screenplay writers like yourself, Russ, about how intimate scenes are depicted on film and what's the interpretation of that depiction from the director and the actors going forward, because I don't know whether intimacy coordinators would even be on the table talking to a director about what's going to happen. They're only there. Their main purpose is to make sure there's no misconduct. Well, there sometimes can be 50 people around you while this is being taking place. And if it says to caress the person on their behind, the actor has to go ahead and caress that person on their behind. You may have people who are nude. Your bodies may be pressed up against one another and you are both nude. It's incredibly intimate. And it's not something, while it isn't actual sex that we're watching, it's not something that you can fake being intimate because you are in an intimate situation. So I think it's very, I believe, at least as far as I can tell, that having another person there to protect somebody from being, being a victim of inappropriate behavior is one thing, but intimacy is intimacy. You can't remove intimacy from an intimate scene and it just won't be intimate anymore. There will be nudity. You may be touching the person. You wouldn't normally be touching people this way. What do you think, Russ? Do you think that do you think it kills the mood? Do you think having an intimacy coordinator there could possibly kill the mood of an intimate scene?
I've never understood why people want to be actors. It seems like it's the hardest job in the world, and I can imagine trying to get yourself, like Sean B said, thrust. I was going to say, try to get yourself up for that kind of scene and sort of really let yourself go is going to be difficult enough to be in the moment. That's what actors always say. They've got to be in the moment. And I think Sean Bean is implying if you've got someone going, no, your hand's too high up on her ass there, Sean, that could be, perceived as offensive, and interrupting them the whole time that they're trying to portray that they're, really sexed up. And honestly, I'm sure some people would love it, but the vast majority of people would find it quite difficult to get sexed up in a room surrounded by lights and geezers in t-shirts and 50 people watching you trying to do this. And for especially, people are going to say, oh, because the lady's naked, but also, as the guy, everyone's going to be looking at your what's it's dangling around, and you're thinking, oh god, like everybody thinking I'm, it's not a nice situation to be in. So I imagine he's got a point. I also imagine that a lot of people dogpiled him for saying it, because we know that there are a lot of people out there that like nothing more than a bit of virtue signaling and jumping on the bandwagon and getting offended. So I can imagine he got a bit of a kicking for it. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned Lady Chatterley's lover. I was going to say before you'd read the article, he would know, because that's what really made him a star back in the day. Lady Chatterley's lover, he was such a sex symbol, a heartthrob, and of course, Lady Chatterley's lover was all about the sex.
Yes, and did he do Lady Chatterley's Lover before 15 Streets? I can't remember. Did you ever see that where he
No, I
was?
didn't see that. I was much more of a Sharp fan. I loved Sharp.
Well, did he do it before Sharp or was it after?
Lady Chatterley's lover was before Sharp, yeah, for sure,
Mhm.
because Sharp was like a
Yes, it
huge big
was.
budget thing. I suppose it
Yes.
looks as cheesy as all hell now. I haven't seen it for many many years, but you know what? I'd love to watch that again as well. So what am I doing now? Sharp and Tango and Cash, brilliant.
Yes, absolutely. We're putting it on the list. I think that if it's interesting because talking to these different industry professionals about these intimate scenes. And I recently was talking to another screenplay writer who you guys probably know, Cameron Pasha. And I've always said that there should be more intimate scenes, more intimacy, more love scenes in television and in movies today, because we've lost a lot of it. And Sean Bean talks about it, how he made a comment about the censorship of the nude scenes, and some of them are his best. Clearly, this man is wonderful in intimacy scenes,
Mm.
guys. I think that's what he is actually mentioning, and we can see from his work he is great in intimacy scenes. So, as far as he's concerned, some of his best scenes are that. And when they remove that, it does change how people perceive his ability to perform, even as on stage or on film. I think that is also very interesting. He's actually talking about how he's perceived as someone who can do that kind of work. And it's nice to hear a man talk about, or at least boast about, his abilities in the intimacy realm,
Yeah,
because I think that a lot of people don't think about men as intimate creatures in that way.
I suppose so. I would sort of say I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with having an intimacy coordinator. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think in the wake of that POS producer that we were talking about, a lot of younger ladies were getting sort of treated quite poorly, in those regards. So you can see that the sort of coordinator is a natural reaction to that, and I think that's probably a step in the right direction. And I think what Sean Bean is getting at, yeah, it's a step in the right direction, and that's brilliant. And if the person wants them there and they feel comfortable with it, it's great. But if that coordinator is, as I was saying, sort of interrupting the scene every 30 seconds to say, well, that's not appropriate, and this is not appropriate, and that's not appropriate, that would make things hard for the actor. So again, I guess it's a question of respect and laying down the ground rules, and most importantly, what either actor is comfortable doing and not doing, because again, the emphasis is often going to be on the female. Oh, poor thing, she's got to have Sean Bean kissing her and massaging her breasts. How terrible for her must that be? But also, in the case of the male actor might not feel comfortable doing certain things. So I think as long as the ground rules are there, it's not a bad thing to have an intimacy coordinator if they're not interfering too much.
And certainly that is true. And I think that what's also interesting is, and to be clear, Sean Bean is talking about intimate scenes with another person. So, there is the other side of the story here. And, we can't know what that other person experienced, but clearly Sean Bean is a professional.
Mm,
And, he has done nothing wrong. So, he is speaking from a professional point of view about how these scenes get handled and his performance, and the fact that they may not even be seen is something that he's disappointed in,
mm.
after having put effort into making this look real so that the rest of us can enjoy these beautiful scenes. And I do want to quickly say hello to Cool Gamer,
Hey,
hello,
cool gamer.
and Lord Toth, hello. But another thing that I wanted to say is that I have noticed, let's say, for individuals who are in scenes solo by themselves. And one of those scenes I would like to point out is a film that I love called Ex Machina.
Hmm.
And in the film, the actress is nude, along with a few other young actresses from time to time, just completely nude in the film. And it's not in a sexual way. She's just, exposed. And in some of those cases, I think that when you're making a film where you are going to be nude for most of the film, I think it's natural to feel exposed
Mm.
because you are exposed.
Yeah, I
You
think so.
are
It's interesting
exposed.
you say that. There's a film from 1981, which is like the
Yes,
best and worst film ever made. It's called Life Force.
it's a wonderful
Uh,
film.
yeah, it's a brilliant film. I love it. But the actress Matilda May, French girl, French lady now, all these years later, she was spent the entire film walking around naked, and she said, at first she was like incredibly self-conscious, but sort of by the second, third, fourth, fifth, eighth day of the shoot, everyone was so used to seeing Matilda May walking around with no clothes on. She was so used to everybody seeing her, it just became sort of part of the thing. And she was very pro being naked in that film. She was like, no, 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 they treated me very well. I wasn't exploited. This is what I wanted to do. I knew I looked good, and it was all part of the show. And everybody loves Life Force.
And I also think it is very different, isn't it, Russ, between being, and, not just women, but men being exposed, completely exposed and being nude, whether it's full frontal or whatever it is, as just by yourself versus having the intimacy or an intimate act with another actor, two very different situations.
Mm,
Both are, you are overexposed. In both cases, you can be exposed. You are, it's not, you're not private, is everything is being exposed, and you can feel overexposed. It's not,
mm,
it's not unnatural to feel overexposed because you are exposing yourself. So it must be part of the experience. Unless you are an incredibly lucky person who just, like you said, she, after a while, she felt, a little different, as she felt like she could trust the people who were around her and nothing was going to happen to her, being that way. And so I think that is something that has to be built on the set, and there will be some uncomfortable moments. There's no doubt about it. If anything, the comments that we're seeing, some of these articles, is informing people who want to get into the profession that there may be moments where you are uncomfortable. There may be moments where, you know, if you're doing a scene like this, it may be uncomfortable. And I think going forward, if anybody's pursuing careers like this, it's good to know that. It's good to know, hey, you know what, when you're in bed with this person, this scene, you might be uncomfortable. It might be uncomfortable initially. And if you want to finish the scene, you're going to have to work through that uncomfortable feeling if you're going to be doing it as written. At least that's how I would interpret that. It's good for performers going forward to be informed about this stuff. And I'm hoping that more discussion about it, having more discussion about intimacy is something that will do that for so many people out there. And what I was saying about Cameron is that Cameron had mentioned he's going to add, or would consider adding, more intimate scenes, more love scenes into his shows and stories, because I had talked about them so much. So thank you, Cameron. And for anybody who's writing
RM's
scripts,
saving the world one sex scene at a time.
that is correct.
It starts here. It starts now.
It's a hashtag, please give us more sex scenes. Honestly, I think that it does say something about intimacy between people, that we want to see these intimate scenes. We crave to see them on the screen. There's no doubt about it. And let's just be honest about it and enjoy it. But also in regards to nudity, which is viewed very differently in the United States than it is, let's say, internationally, even just general nudity here in the United States is very touchy. It's a very touchy topic. And I think that's something, and I think it was exhibited even more importantly in the movie, and I was discussing this the other day, the movie The Piano with Holly Hunter and Harvey Keitel, where in the story, she has to expose, you know, this is like the 1800s or the 1700s. She's wearing a dress that goes all the way up to her neck and down to the floor, and her arms are covered completely. And so, you know, in the story, she kind of takes off her glove, you know, and it's a sexual thing. And in the movie, they have to be nude. They have to have an intimate scene where she's completely nude and he's nude, and you have to see the nudity in order for this to be believable. It can't be, well, they're nude and they're under the covers. No, you have to see it. It's part of the intimate experience of him actually seeing her, because you are seeing her, but he's seeing her and he's in love with this woman. She's in love with him. So you needed to experience that nudity. We didn't necessarily need to see them do anything other than being nude together, holding one another. That was sort of like the consummation for them because of the arrangement that they had made. So I think it's interesting, these moments of intimacy that we know happen on a day-to-day basis, but in some cases, in regards to how it's portrayed on screen, and I guess for some actors, it's still something that they have to work through to get it right. We know when it works on screen, that's for sure, when we see it. So please, may they never go away, and please may they be added in a greater frequency. And guys, thanks for listening to my comments about intimacy. Football Frequency, hello, Football Frequency. Thank you for joining the conversation here. Makes a comment about the cast of Predator and being former athletes. And also one of the cast members was a former Navy SEAL. Just to add that in, which I found out last night. I did not know that. So yeah, I did see, even you knew, but I didn't know. And I'm so happy to hear that, because I love the men in the military, guys. Thank you for your service, and the ladies as well. Love you all certainly for your service, whether it's the United States or whatever place that you serve in. Talks about being a former athlete. And what do you think about modern athletes switching over to act? I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic. If you can find somebody talented who used to be an athlete, I think it's wonderful. Bring them into performing, into the performance arts. Feels like modern sports, in a way, almost has become like a performance art. Russ, what are your thoughts?
As long as they work at the craft, I think, you know, the temptation is to sort of throw wrestlers into movies and all the rest of it. And even WWE have got their own sort of action movie studio where they pump out a lot of direct to DVD stuff. But I think you can see the ones that take it really seriously, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, for example, was a millionaire before he ever wanted to be, you know, before he became a movie star. He wanted to be a millionaire first, and then he decided he was going to be a movie star. But he I know people laugh at his acting, but he did work very, very hard at his craft. The same with John Cena. And people forget John Cena was a WWE or WWF guy, but he has made that transition over to acting. I think acting's really hard, and I don't. It must be a talent. I don't know if it's something you can just pick up and learn. I have no experience of that, but I know spoken to many actors, and for many actors, it's a calling. And what do I think about athletes crossing over? Yeah, I think it's brilliant because they have a brand and they can bring that across with them. But it's always um, nice to see former athletes in roles where they're not just leveraging off what they used to be. They're actually in sort of proper roles. I mean, like look at Cena in Peacemaker, and he was in the one comedy film where he was gay and didn't know he was gay, and he was just absolutely playing up to this character, and his performance was superb, and you kind of forgot it was John Cena in the role, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, John Cena has really hit it out of the park for me in the Peacemaker. I didn't know what to think. I had the fortunate experience of seeing him in person in November and in San Diego, and he was promoting the show. And I said, "Yeah, I guess I'm going to watch the show." And I was pleasantly surprised solely by his performance, which
Mm.
I was not expecting. I think he's infectious. He appears to have a magnetism about him that actually draws the cast to him. And it's a wonderful feeling to see an actor be able to push this story in that way and in what would be considered a very unusual script. As far as I'm concerned, it certainly wasn't sort of like your average everyday script, was it?
That's,
He
that's
managed to
true.
he managed to push that through and make it believable, and he almost had a sensitivity to him uh, in the Peacemaker, which I was not expecting. Certainly, he has a special touch to the characters that
But
he
that's the one thing you
plays.
can't buy, isn't it? That's what they call. I know there's the horrible TV show about it, but that's the X factor. Like you can be the best looking, best actor in the world, with the best face, the most perfect face, but if you haven't got whatever that thing is that these people have, this charisma, this innate thing about them that draws you to them, you're not going to be a movie star. You might be an actor, but you'll never be a star. And it's an intangible. It's unquantifiable. If you look at, we were talking about him earlier on. Look at Stallone. Why is that guy? He's not traditionally handsome. He's not any of these things. He's not particularly tall. He's none of that stuff. He's not anybody, but he's got that. I don't have that. He's got that. Cena's got that. Bruce Lee had that. Elvis had it. You can go down. Robert Downey Jr.'s got it. It's an
Dakota Beavers
intangible.
has it from Prey.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. He does. Yeah, 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 yeah. Watch out for that guy. Watch out for that
Yes,
guy. Let's see what's going to become of him. A little bit too
yes,
good
and
looking for his own good. That one.
we certainly we certainly need to talk about it. Retro Norgles says, "Excuse me, I can't even speak. I'm just so excited. I get excited, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna breathe. I'm breathing, Tom. All right. Retro Nerd Girl says, I don't understand the controversy of what Sean Bean is saying. It's got to be awkward having more people in the room while being intimate. I think Sean is valid. And Nathan follows up with saying that an intimacy coordinator is there to protect the limits of each actor in a situation that's about to be filmed. If it messes up the intimacy of the scene, then so be it. Hashtag me too. Exactly, Nathan. And I think that I think that everybody would agree with you. I think there isn't anybody saying anything contrary to that for sure. So that's what's so interesting is the overall response towards Sean Bean when he said this. Football Frequency says, don't know if they have to get it up for a scene though. Well, you know something? This is another question, and I think that the expectation from a male actor is different in an intimacy scene than a female actor. And so that's something else that they have to talk about and discuss before they go forward in these scenes. We are expecting men to behave a certain way in a scene, whether he's with another man or a woman or whatever it is. And the same for a girl on girl scene, let's say. We're
Mm.
expecting a certain way of behavior in these scenes.
Yeah, I think
And
so. Like I said earlier on, it's all good. No, I don't think anybody is against intimacy coaches, especially in the wake of the Me Too thing. I just think if they're, things should be. I'm sure they are spoken about beforehand, and I'm sure that Sean Bean was just, for daring to say, look, it puts me off my thrust a little bit. Like I don't like it. Find it a little bit uncomfortable. I'm sure he was dogpiled. Because there are so many warriors out there that want to just virtue signal. Oh, he's a terrible misogynist, and how dare he? And I'm sure he's none of those things. I mean, the guy's 62 now, isn't he? 62 or 63, and is just speaking from his own lived experience, if you like.
Yes, and Darth Plato, very, very well said, Russ. Darth Plato says, "Do movies have fight coordinators? So why not an intimacy coordinator?" Good point. And the Hidden says, "I agree with about college sports and how players should be played." And I'm assuming you mean paid fairly. Absolutely. The Hidden has to run. But the Hidden, thank you for popping in and sharing your thoughts. We certainly do appreciate that. And something, Retro Nerd Girl, I'm looking forward to you reviewing this Lady Chatterley's Lover for us, Retro Nerd Girl. I can't wait for that review.
Well, it's retro. It's retro. It's 1993, so you've got an excuse to watch it if you needed one.
Absolutely. It certainly would be interesting to hear your perspective on this. It certainly is something to investigate, and it's certainly something to think about. But it's the expectations that I think that Sean, Mr. Bean, is talking about in regards to being able to produce or to create a realistic situation on film, and perhaps not being able to do that if interrupted. So, that makes also good sense. And he's being paid to do this. He's being paid to create that experience. Mm-hmm. This is something that we are expecting him to do. So there is that element as well. Okay. So I promise I'm not going to say anything else about intimacy coordinators other than to say that thank God there are still some intimacy scenes going on out there. And we also have... Darth Plato talks about the love scene in American Werewolf in London, and that love scene was nuts. You certainly do remember that, don't you? Some of these scenes may push the limits, or as Sean Bean has said, might be some of their best work. And Norwegian Kryptonian says, "Hello to us."
Oh, hello.
How are you? Good to see you. Now, of course, Darth Plato talks about Sharp's Honor, where Sean Bean breaks into the nunnery. And he says he bets that he enjoyed filming that. And some of it has some comic relief to it. Some of it does. I
just remember the bit when he was with Elizabeth Hurley.
Oh, yes.
That was a scene that's indelibly burned upon my 20-something-year-old mind. Seeing Liz Hurley in the buff, I was, oh my God, I'm never going to be the same again. Yeah.
Yes. And I think those are great moments. I think, like I said, that there are some scenes that need to be made, and I think that they are beautiful moments on film. And
talking of beautiful moments on film,
yes.
Something I did want to bring up. Have you seen, and I would like to ask the chat as well, have you seen the entirety of Netflix's Sandman?
I have seen the entirety of Netflix's Sandman. Yes, I have. And Russ, have you seen
Hey,
Joker
yes.
Voice.
Hey, Joker Voice. Good morning. I would be interested to get your take on the Sandman.
Yes, I will certainly give you my take on the Sandman. And Retro Nerd Girl, yes, Life Force is one of my favorites. And I have a feeling quite a few of us would agree with you on that. I thought it was beautifully filmed. I thought that the actress, she's beautiful. And I think that her, incidentally, having to be nude in the film enhanced the film. But she also is a great actress. I think she's wonderful. And I think there is something to be said for performances where people are nude, but it's not she's not doing anything other than just walking around, guys. This is something to be said about an actress who can convey certain emotions or feelings to you, but without actually having to do anything at all.
It's kind of like Emilia Clarke in Game of Thrones. She's so beautiful with her. I don't know what it is about her with her blonde hair. She's like so beautiful it hurts my eyes. And very similar to Life Force, she spends an entire season walking around with nothing on. And there's something about her that it's so beautiful and so perfect. And it's kind of like Matilda May as well. They have something that other people don't have. And that's why it works so well with Matilda May
And I
and
feel the
Amelia
same.
Clarke.
No, absolutely. I also feel that way about Anna Taylor-Joy in Northmen,
Mm.
as well as the actor Skarsgård in the Northmen. I felt that he had a performance like that because in some of the scenes where either he was nude or he didn't have as much clothing on, we were supposed to be admiring his physique. I mean, this was something that was an element in the film that was really important, I think, for the character. And also, Mike Fassbinder in a movie called Shame, where he does have quite a lot of nude scenes.
Is that the
And
one where he's a sex addict? Is it or something?
yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah. I've heard.
I thought,
I haven't actually seen it, but you make a good point. Just before you say you talk about Michael Fassbender in that, or you talk about Skarsgård in that, or you talk about any one of these guys, Chris Hemsworth, whatever it happens to be. Yes, they're getting paid fortunes to do what they do, but they work fucking hard to get into that shape. Now, we all know that they have, chemical help to do it, and it's monitored and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, that's what they're doing it for. They look fantastic. Let's see it. Let's appreciate it, and let's not be shamed into thinking that there's something wrong with it. If they're prepared to do it and they want to show off, like Van Damme was doing today. Why was Sylvester Stallone's Rambo running around in the desert with his top off the entire time? Why is Dolph Lundgren taking his shirt off all the time? Why does Henry Cavill appear? Well, because they look awesome. That's why.
and I also want to add something else to this is that when we see these types of nude scenes, and they're, like I said, not all of them are with another person, there is a certain level of intimacy in being a human being that we see, and we do like to. I like to see men, either in the process of getting dressed or whatever it is. It does add some of the believability of the character as you're watching this. Functioning from day to day. So there is that additional part to it. It's as important as the scene where, they're going off on a mission and everybody's putting all their gear into a bag, putting face paint on, putting clothes on or whatever it is. All of those elements build into the story and build, that subcontext for you to understand what's going on. Hey, is it Slot Car Palace? Hey, Slot Car Palace. Hi. Welcome to Sunday Brunch. Slot Car Palace's question is, have you seen Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, where Emma Thompson is amazing and goes full frontal? Not only have I seen the film Slot Car Palace, I reviewed it here on Positive Fandom with my very good friend, Lorena Creel. So do
Yes, you
watch the
did.
video,
Yeah.
guys.
Check it out, Scott Carr.
Yes. And that's exactly what I'm referring to is Emma Thompson showing herself nude in the story needed to be done because this was a woman who was dealing with accepting her sexual desires. And I've talked about the idea of older people and their sexual desires and seeing that on film. And, one example of that was seeing Michael Keaton in The Protege last year. The Protege, I think, is now streaming on Amazon or one of those streaming services. I mean, Michael Keaton was 70 years old when he made this film, and yet he has an intimate encounter with the lead actress. And he even goes so far as to say, are we going to do this or what? And I thought to myself, wow, he's 70. This is amazing. And even I have to say that I was impressed with his prowess at 70. So, guys, older people are having sex and loving it. Look at The Villages here in the United States. Sex is not something that's going away. And I like that we get to see her naturally. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. So have you seen that film, Russ?
No.
Good luck to you. Okay. No. Okay. That's cool. But I just wanted to express that. And thank you for coming to the channel and the station and watching. Please do check out some of my videos, Slot Car Palace. Certainly do appreciate you coming in today. And just to kind of one more comment, Woodrow talks about how Leah Sado shows her body all the time, but in blue is the warmest color. She felt the male director went too far. Oh, interesting. And wasn't collaborating. Yes, communication is the key. and Woodrow, you make a good point. And thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson. This is the review of that I did with Lorena on Good Luck to You, Leogram, which I thought was such a lovely film that Emma Thompson made there. So, and he also goes on to mention Crimes of the Future. I haven't watched that. Have you watched that, Russ?
No, I haven't.
Well, let's get back to what you had introduced and what we were talking about. And I'm sorry I got distracted, Russ.
Sure. Sandman. So what did you think?
Well, I watched the entire season of The Sandman, and I felt that there were two very separate parts of the season. I felt that there was an arc where that went up to about maybe episodes 5 or 6. The one that you mentioned was your favorite episode, Russ, where the Sandman was meeting someone in a pub. I don't remember
I'll speak about that in a minute when it comes around to my turn, but yeah.
So I felt that after that episode, things changed very dramatically in the series. And one of the things that I had mentioned to you already was that I had a favorite episode, which was the 25 hours or 24/7.
24/7, yeah.
Which people are calling the diner episode. And outside of that, I thought that was the best episode of television I have ever seen, Russ. I have never seen anything.
High praise indeed.
I have never seen anything like it. I felt that it continually stimulated your mind and your thought patterns into trying to figure out what was going to come next in the scene. And it certainly delivered. It was a fun ride. It might have been a little predictable in some parts, but I enjoyed it immensely. And what's ironic about it, or at least from what I've heard, is that it was one of those episodes where primarily the Sandman wasn't even in the episode.
Correct.
So I think that is very interesting that he wasn't there, but the episode to me was the one that was most impactful or made the biggest impression on me in regards to having fun with the idea of what can be done when all of your inhibitions are down. So perhaps that's not the best way to describe it, but for me, the first half of the season was my favorite. And then once it went past the pub episode, it wasn't quite what I wanted. And part of the reason for me that it fell short was because many times as I was watching it, I couldn't tell whether you were in the dream world or in the waking world. And that really disturbed me. And I felt that there should have been some key or kind of clue that could let you know where you were, because more than one occasion, scenes were happening and then someone would kind of wake up and be in a car, or, wake up and be in a room. And I'm like, well, how long was that going on for? If I was confused, I wondered if other people were confused as well. Doesn't mean that it wasn't a good series, but for me, that made it difficult for me to follow it. And once you have difficulty following the show, it's hard to figure out what's going on. So I was a little disappointed that wasn't a little bit more clear for those of us who, I'm a normie for the Sandman. I never read the comics. Now, you read the comics, Russ. You have a background in the Sandman story. What was your opinion of this first season of the Sandman?
I think, having watched the whole thing, some things are just better left on paper. For me, it was had some real highlights. Some of the performances in that show were out of this world. David Hewlett was a standout for me. Stephen Fry is always excellent. The actor that portrayed the Sandman had a lot of heavy lifting to do, and tried to portray a character, of Dream in the way that he did. I thought he was absolutely outstanding. I also thought the little boy, oh God, what's his name? The little kid that they're trying to rescue. His name's gone out of my head, and I only watched it last night as well.
Is it Jet?
Jeddy, yeah, Jed, exactly, yeah. I thought for especially for a young person, I thought he was absolutely outstanding as an actor. Yeah, the diner episode, the 24/7, was fantastic. Why did I like the pub one? Because that pub is right over there. You can't see where I'm pointing, but it's literally
Wow, that
two
is
minutes
so cool.
2 minutes around the corner from where I live, and that whole episode was shot in and around Ham, the pub that was uh, that they said, and it points to the New Inn. The pub actually is called the New Inn. It's on Ham Common. The other pub that they were in is called the Dysarts, and then they were on Putney Bridge. It was really quite funny to see the Sandman actually step into my local, and there he was. And we've sat on those. My friend MG and I were sat on the chairs opposite that a couple of weeks ago. Um, what did I think of it overall? You would never have known until you'd seen it. I kind of wish that they hadn't bothered um, doing it. I'm not interested in watching a second season of Sandman. And what I did uh, find, um, I understand that we need to have more diversity in our entertainment, but I think they just rather oversold the diversity angle in Sandman. Like literally every character was race swapped. Well, not literally every character, but vast majority of characters, there was race swapping going on, and there were lots of gay relationships going on, and all. It's not sort of representative of the real world. Not everybody is in a mixed race relationship. Not everybody is gay, and I think that they were trying to push that just a little bit too hard for me. I wasn't offended by it, but it kept taking me out of the story. In the very first one, where they captured Dream, and Dream is he's in the glass cage, and then the Charles Dance's son, another mammoth performance by Charles Dance. He's absolutely fantastic, and it comes out that the son is gay. Fine, okay, we can accept that. But now he's gay in 1920s England in a mixed race relationship. And that's fine. That happens once, but then it was in the next show, and the next show, and the next show, and it just kept taking me out of it. I was noticing the changes, and it was just all rather too much for me. It kept taking me out of the story because like I just noticed it. I think they went a step too far on that front. But having said that, that's entirely their prerogative. This is like me personally sat down watching it. I kept getting taken out of the story by it. Gaiman himself has been very public in saying it's his story. He can do whatever the hell he likes, and it absolutely is, and he absolutely should do that. Um, I was just it lost uh, the immersion for me. It stopped it because I was noticing the actors and not the story that was being told. That aside, I always wanted to see a show of the Sandman, right? Because it's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant set of stories. But now having seen it, I wasn't that enamored of it. As I say, it had some highlights, it had some brilliant performances, but as a whole, it felt like a very, very uneven show. Um, some good bits, as you were saying, after the pub episode, which set in hand, yay, um, I had to kind of force myself to get to the end of the show. I'd sort of stopped caring about it at this point, where they suddenly introduced this Vortex character. Yeah, it was like a new story to be told in 3 episodes. I kind of get that it's an anthology with a loosely, because all Sandman stories are like that, but I'd kind of stopped caring by the end of it. But take nothing away from the performers in that show. I really like Desire, actually. She, they didn't really get enough screen time. I actually thought that was a brilliant bit of casting and a brilliant portrayal of that particular character. I thought that was quite smart. So for me, it was bang average, and I not bothered to watch the second season. I will if we're still doing this show and I'm still alive this time next year or whatever it happens to be. But I'm not excited to see it. That would be my verdict. So I would say 5 out of 10.
Well, before I give my ranking on it, I just want to say hello to Memes of Destruction. Hello.
Hello.
Memes of Discretion says, "Hey guys, what's going on?" And we did have one or two comments about Joker Voice says, "Hey, athletes becoming actors just because you're famous doesn't mean you can act." That's a good point. And also, Darth Leo says he thought Peacemaker was entertaining but didn't care for Cena's comments. Joker Voice says that he does not care for John Cena, didn't like him as a wrestler, and his acting reminds him of Will Ferrell. Low hanging fruit, self-debasing humor, can't stand it. Thank you, Joker
I
Voice, for
can't bear Will Ferrell. I can't stand him. I can't stand. The only thing I could watch him in was Zoolander. And then
Mhm.
anything else, I get that people think that he's like the funniest guy ever, but I just don't find his style of sort of screaming and gurning. Whoa, no, not for me. Sorry, guys. If you're a Will Ferrell fan, I apologize, and I apologize to Will Ferrell because I'm sure he's watching as well, but not for me.
And Benjamin Wolf says, I loved Roddy Piper's performance as the heroic buffoon in They Live. He was good
Johnny
in that.
Nada.
And yeah, absolutely. He went on to other professional wrestling to have a prolific acting career. That woman's blue eyes, I can never forget how piercing her blue eyes were in that story. And Nathan says, hey, Joker Voice, everyone sees things in a different way, and that's okay. Thanks for sharing your opinion. It's appreciated. It is appreciated. And I'm glad that you let us know. Chips Beweck says that Peacemaker was a surprise to him. It was a surprise to me too.
Surprise to everybody. Everyone thought it was going to be a pile of shit, and it actually turned out to be the best thing DC have done in a long, long time.
Absolutely. And I think there was one person, I wasn't quite sure if I had said good morning to Cavantino Cavalryman Che, hello. And he says that there was an actress who was an athlete that hangs out with a certain Canadian bear at an event in Boston earlier this weekend. Ooh, thank you for letting us know the scoop. I never get scoops, so I appreciate that one. And Rogue Thinker, I don't know whether I said hello to you, Rogue Thinker, but if I didn't, hello. No, I didn't. So he says hello and says, this chat, I'm going to be way behind, but I think the love scene in Highlander was pretty good. Yes, I agree, Rogue Thinker. You guys make any comments about love scenes you like, because you know I love to hear about that stuff. Joker Voice did a review of The Sandman, so go to Joker Voice's channel and check that out. And Mike Alito says that The Sandman was great. And Darth Plato says, I haven't even seen it yet. What I wanted to say, in addition to add to what...
Oh, shit. We didn't spoil anything, though.
No.
We were just talking about it in general.
Right. We haven't done spoilers. We're not going to do spoilers. And also, good morning to the Basco Scenario. Hello, Basco Scenario. Welcome to the channel. What I want to say is Maxim Alexander Park is the person they casted as Desire. And she, I don't care what the story is. Alexander is completely desirous.
Well, I just think that they see, for me now, some people get bent out of shape because is that person transgender or transsexual or whatever they are. But I thought that's smart. That's how you would do Desire. I thought that was really, really brilliant. And Joker Voice is under basically summarizing. I think we're parking our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay. I thought that was a genius bit of casting. But as for the rest of it, Constantine especially, oh my god, yeah, John Constantine is now not John Constantine. Come on. But yeah, sorry, I jumped in there and I shouldn't.
It's quite all right. And guys, do check out Joker Voice's review on his channel, guys. Please do support some of these other creators who are here today. Slot Car Palace says, I had to stop watching it. I'm okay with gender or race swapping or gay characters, but switching from horror to sweet. Now, this is interesting. I don't hear this all the time, Slot Car Palace. Switching from horror to sweet and sad is just not the Sandman for me. What do you think about that, Russ, from the comics?
The comics were always quite surreal. I don't remember them being particularly horrific. Now, it's been a while since I've read them, Slot Car, so it has been years and years. But I remember that they were really good. And you know the one with the pub when he meets William Shakespeare. That was a whole storyline in the comics. You know, they did. Oh God, the Shakespeare play with Puck in it. Is it Much Ado About Nothing? Midsummer Night's Tale.
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream. They did Midsummer Night's Dream in that comic. Yeah, I didn't stop watching it because I had to watch it so we could talk about it today. But I'm with Slot Car as well. If I I didn't have to watch it so I could talk with, I wouldn't say authority about it because I don't talk about anything with authority, but I know what I was talking about the show. Then no, I wouldn't have bothered. I probably would have switched off sooner than I did.
Yeah, and we also have Evil Face Bad. Hello, Evil Face Bad. Nice to have you here today. And Holy Hand Grenades, which I follow up with Heavy Hands, Hand Grenades.
Hmm.
I'm following that up with Heavy Hands. Hey guys, I've been lurking. Hope you all are well. We are well. So yes, Alexander in The Sandman, they talk about Jenna Coleman, who I am fond of. I've watched a lot of her work.
Hmm.
Outside of Doctor Who, I've watched her in so many performances, and I've seen articles where they said she was the breakout character. And as far as I'm concerned, she fell completely flat. She's a great actress, but even she couldn't make this jump off the page for me. It was the Alexander character who, from the second the light shone on his face, or her face, or whoever you want to describe this character on Desire, was incredibly desirous. So desirous that this is the breakout character of this series, because you can't take your eyes off of Desire. And I
Correct.
want more of Desire. I don't care how and what they do. Give me more of that Desire back. And this is certainly something that I think is very interesting, is the vibe you get from Desire is extremely desirous. I think that level of intensity that they were able to achieve on camera with this character is the same level you're expecting from all of the characters, but we didn't get performances like that
Well,
throughout the
Morpheus himself
entire.
was brilliant. I mean, he had
Mhm.
gravitas, and he looked, how they must have scoured the world to find that chap. I mean, he's literally what I imagined the Sandman to be like. The one character that they nailed was the main one.
Yes.
I know that people are. I'm seeing the chat scroll past. So I don't think the opinions that we are espousing here are particularly, controversial. I think everybody has sort of picked up on it. But as I said earlier on, this is up to Neil Gaiman. These are his things. He can cast, he can put as much influence on it as he wants, and cast who he likes. But yeah, the guy that they got to be the Sandman, superb. He really carried it. Like I believed in him. I believed him, and I like the scene when he's with Hob, and Hob says, "I think you're my friend," and he gets the hump. I remember that from the. Yeah, I actually remembered it. It was page to page from the page to screen from the comic. But yeah, I think it was just overdone, and I don't think it was as subtle as a brick. Now, if you have never read the comics, perhaps you're going to have a different perspective. But even so, I just think, looking at it as a layman, you're going to look at the couplings and the couples of and the way that these couples are set up, and it it is unusual. I would say it is unusual.
It is unusual. I just want to say good morning to Lorena Creole. Good morning, Lorena. I hope you are well today. Everybody, we posted Lorena's link in the chat, so do check out her channel. Lorena does some of the best pop culture analysis and Disney parks and Universal parks shows out there. So do please check out her channel. I stream a lot with Lorena at 1:00. We do have a replay on our Toxic Male Appreciation show on her channel today. Guys, please do check out Lorena Creole. Welcome to you. And Tom Jr. Jackson says, check out his Instagram feed for some cool Funko Pop pics. If you guys didn't know, Tom Jr. Jackson is an aficionado and collector of Funko Pops, and he creates stories using pictures with the Funko Pops. So please go ahead and go to his Instagram, watch his stories. They are a lot of fun, a lot of imagination. Do check out Tom Jr. Jackson's Instagram feed. Woodrow says, Original Sin in 2001 with Angelina Jolie and Antonio Banderas is my favorite love scene.
Yeah,
She
I'm having some happy
produces.
memories. Angie was always one of my favorites. She was right up there on my list when people say when she was young, but still, I think she's, the Lord was having a good day when he was putting Angelina together.
She still has it,
She still
Russ. You
got
just have
it.
to
She still got it.
dim the lights just a bit. Let that imagination flow a little bit, guys. She seduces the hell out of him. And I love that, Woodrow. I have to say that again. She seduces the hell out of him, Woodrow. Yes. So thank you for sharing your comments on that one, because I love that as well. And Slot Car Palace says, true, Russ, but reread the diner scene or Sandman's recovery of his Sandman bag. So we will, for those of us who
It's been a while. I'm not sure which bit you're talking about there, Slot Car, because we had a lot to say on it. I'm struggling to remember what you're referring to there. I apologize.
And I think this is very interesting. Joker Voice says the casting of Desire, no issue there. Do I need to see more of that character? As long as the story isn't shoving the character down my throat, I don't care. And that's a very good point. I hope they handle Desire the right way. But some of the other characters, it was Slot Car mentions that it was bitter, world weary, somewhat threatening, definitely not cute.
This is the casting of Jenna Coleman. We all know what John Constantine's like. We all know that Matt Ryan is the perfect John Constantine, and yet Warner Brothers just want to seem to race and sex swap him out of the situation. I think that I saw it in the chat, and I couldn't have said it better myself. That was the most egregious part of it was changing Constantine, because he's a very, very popular character, and you have to wonder, it's the whys, it's the why that this was done. And I think the last I think Slot was talking about when I was saying in the very first one that the son was gay and then he was in a mixed race relationship. Fine, if that's in the comic, fine. But what I was more illustrating, Slots, is that's fine. Okay, fine. That one thing, yeah, or another thing, or another thing. But it was every single part of that show was changed in that way to show some form of diversity, and it took me out of the story. But that's just me personally. I hope everybody else enjoyed it.
Yes, and please do check out Lorena Creole's channel here. Slot Car Palace says he's got to go to work, but he'll watch the rest later. You guys are terrific and love your channel. Thank you for the kind words, Slot Car Palace. We certainly do appreciate you coming here, and thank you for the support. And thank you for everybody who supported the channel, Mr. Simpkins, Martino Solmoni, of course, Stubble McShave, and anybody else who's contributed to the channel. We appreciate it. And so with that being said, Russ, do we have enough time to mention Prey? Did you see Prey, Russ? Did we discuss that last time?
I was raving about it last week. My comment on it was really a lot of some of the people that I tend to follow on YouTube attacked this show as this movie has been very, very woke. And it simply wasn't. And they attacked the character for being a Mary Sue, and she simply wasn't. I understand that there has to be some level, some license. Yes, I get it. All right, she turns into a bit of a ninja at the end. Fine. But on the whole, it was nothing like it was marketed. It was nothing like a lot of the critics I saw attack it, and it's been getting nothing but positive vibes. The best. Some people say the best Predator since Predator. Not sure I agree. I'm torn between it and Predators. I've got a lot of love for Predators, and I know that I'm going to get wrapped in the mouth for that. Everybody says Predator 2 is better, but I like Predators. So.
Well, I finally saw it, and thank you, Tom, for posting up the Stream Elements. Guys, if you want to support me, you can click on Stream Elements and make a pledge there. Thank you so much to everybody who has done that. And thank you, Evil Face Bad, for commenting on my earrings. You have no idea the choices I had to make before coming on air.
You have no idea. I was here in the green room pre the show regarding the earrings, mate.
You certainly were. Laura Thoth says he felt it was underwhelmingly okay.
Really? I thought it was great. I loved it. Sorry, Lord Thoth. I thought it was top draw. 9 or 10 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed it.
Evil Face Bad says he thought it was great, saw it twice, and his mother liked it, and she's 70. Well, I'm going to give my brief thoughts about it. And I had Joker Voice has also watched Prey, and can I click on that? Joker Voice, yes, Yes, they are Shazam earrings. Yes, thank you, Lord Toth. I appreciate that. Um, I just watched it. He said it was okay. It wasn't a masterpiece that people were saying. It was just meh. Now, what I did want to say is that I think that there's two ways of looking at this film. And one is that if you're a hardcore Predator fan, you're going to have a certain opinion about it in the way that the Predator was portrayed. But the other part of the film and the way that it was marketed, Russ, you talked about the importance. And because I had asked you about, the question that we were talking about on Midnight Musings,
Mhm.
are we owed anything by these writers and creators? And you made such a good point, Russ. You said that they need to be honest in what they're telling us, that what to expect when they're creating something. And this honesty, Russ, is
Mm.
exactly the problem that we're seeing with these multi-million-dollar campaigns that are giving us just not what the story is about. And that was incredibly true, as you said in Prey. Even in the IMD page, it says that she's a skilled warrior, and she is not a skilled warrior.
Mm.
This is a young woman who looks up to her brother, and he is the main character as far as I'm concerned. The breakout star, played by Dakota Beavers, who is
Mm.
an incredible actor. And as soon as you see him in the movie on screen, you cannot take your eyes off of this young man. He is remarkable looking. He shines on the screen. He has presence. He doesn't even have to try too hard to get your attention, and then you realize that this young man, is the apple of the main character's eye. She's trying to be like him. She's
Yes.
trying to be like her older brother. We've all been there. Now, I have an older brother, and I could never be like him because he's extraordinary. He's just everything that I would say a man should be. He's masculine, all those things. I don't want to be masculine and like that. But let's just say, if someone were to say, is there a role model you have out there? I said, yeah, I want to be like my brother. He's a great guy. He's successful. There are a lot of things about him that if I could do, I would want to be able to do those things. Now, I know I can't do everything, and that's fine. But this character, she's a young girl. She's a teenage girl. She's not really fully an adult as far as I'm concerned. She's still learning, and she follows her brother, and she loves him so much. And he does everything. He's the kindest brother you could possibly imagine. And that, in addition to her brother being the apple of her eye, the fact that we see the most chivalrous Native Americans I've ever seen, and the most masculine men who go every step of the way trying to protect this woman, to me, is the take home message of the story. This is like some of the most incredible attempts of showing heroism and protection and bravery that I've ever seen of a Native American group of people, and I loved it. Now, looking from the Predator side, some of the things are not quite what we would expect to see from Predator. It is true. But despite that fact, I think it was successful because they were trying to show a group of people in the 1700s.
Mm.
And this is an era of up for interpretation. It was wonderful to see the people there. It was wonderful to see the Comanche people. It was fascinating. But the idea of promoting the film as this young girl is a skilled warrior is not true.
Challenging the gender norms of her tribe.
She's not. She's following her brother around because she loves him, and we've all seen this. Let's not try and make it seem like that's unusual. Siblings follow siblings around, and they want to be like their siblings. So that's just true. That's
I
an
think
absolute true statement.
I think you're talking about the Predator. I think I might have mentioned this last week, and if I didn't, I apologize. I think what they got so right, whatever you think about the movie as a whole, what they really got right in this movie was the Predator was not given any particular human characteristics. It was not a character in the way that it was portrayed in The Predator and Aliens versus Predator, where the way that the Predator was written was with human characteristics, if you like, or alien characteristics. Part of it. No, this is just a horrible, horrible thing, doing horrible, horrible things to people and animals, just like he was in the first one. Like, we understand that it comes from a certain culture. We understand that it's a hunter, but that's all we really know. And they really did dial it back to the Predator is horrid and it's here to skin you, to kill you and skin you and take your skull and your spine home. And it looks at you like certain parts of our society look at deer or elephants or whatever. It gets a thrill out of your pain, and it's a monster, and they did that very, very well.
Yes. And I guess the only real criticism I could say about this, and it would feed back into what I would say pretty much criticism about any film, is the abilities of, I'm a woman and I know I have limitations, and I can't even fight off, let's say just any man, even if he was 70 pounds, I can't do it. It's not happening. No way. Okay. So as a woman, I know I can't. Even a teenage boy, I don't have the strength to fight off. So this is something that I thought was very interesting, is that we did see circumstances where she was in that situation. They wouldn't let her run off. They didn't want her to get killed. They protected her. And there was even a moment that touched me very much that I commented on that made me teary-eyed, when she said, "You guys have to untie me. I got to help you guys fight." And they're like, "No, stay down, stay down. We want to make sure you're safe." And that's
Yeah,
still
and also they think she's going to get in the way.
well, yes, she will get in the way. She definitely
You're
will.
not trained
Yes.
for this. You're going to slow us down and all that kind of thing. Now, of course, that's the most not woke thing ever, because nowadays you see they tend to idealize female characters have been more capable and and been able to do everything else, and that little bit in and of itself is just like, no, love, you don't know what you're doing. Sit down. You're going to get in the way. We will handle this. We're the dudes. And as it would have been, frankly.
Yes, and thank you guys. I'm posting. I'm kind of putting up all the comments because we don't have a lot of time here, and I wish I had more time. Law Top says, "Chivalrous Native Americans ever." Nice, agreed. Yes, wait, it was incredible to see it. Oh, Laura Toth says, "I like the comment. The writers need to be honest with us and themselves when they're doing this. If they honestly said what it was about, and then we got that, then we wouldn't be so
Well,
kind
this
of like
happened with He-Man
confused."
as well, didn't it? Like, Kevin Smith sort of came out, and the nerd community used to have such a lot of trust for this guy, but as the years have gone on, that trust has eroded. But he completely blindsided everybody with the He-Man thing. I'm not a huge He-Man fan, but I understand He-Man sort of killed off in the first episode, and it's not about He-Man at all. Yet the show was called, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So yeah,
Yeah, that was a huge disappointment. Joker Boy says that he liked the environment was incredible.
it was
A lot of
beautiful. Yeah.
people had comments about that because it's true that it was not. If you watch Dances with Wolves, that's what the Great Plains look like. There are no trees, but that is a creative license that I gave it, and it is very true, guys. It wasn't fully on the Great Plains. They did have some other landscape there. I overlooked it, but it is true if you're saying that. It's absolutely correct. It was not like right on the plains like it normally would be. Lord Toth says, Lady Toth. Well, hello to you, Lady Toth. Hello. So glad to know that you've given your rating as well. She gave it a higher rating, probably because he says, I love the film, the original film, and we all do love the original film, which I watched with Lorena on her channel yesterday. I think, last night. He says, I'd give it a 5. Okay. Darth Plato says proper masculinity is protective, self-sacrifice, and I don't believe for a second she would survive an encounter. Well, you know something? I don't believe it either.
No, it does get a bit ninja. I mean, I think we have to wear that.
And I think that what would have been interesting, not that she died, because let's be honest, she's the luckiest girl in the world. She's got these guys all died to protect her. So fate would have it that she would survive in this situation. That some of the other guys would have come and taken her away and they moved to a different area. That's what I think would have happened. More of these, French trappers, unfortunately, would have been killed because in the end she says, oh, there are foreigners coming around. We have to move. But, I think it would have been interesting if she had gotten away and that she didn't defeat him and that the predator, somehow they eluded her, do something different because we never had that. She escapes, they escape, and the predator goes on to something else. It would be something a little different, but it's all right. If it can handle a bear, it can handle her instantly. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the only thing in its defense was they did make a point of showing the predator getting more and more injured and shot as the sort of film goes on. It gets more and more damaged and hurt and trapped and shot at and lumps chopped out of it. So it's in a weakened state. But look, okay, let's say
have
it
a
is
minute
unrealistic.
left.
Okay, let's say it is unrealistic that she would survive the encounter. The film had fished me in,
Yes.
engaged me. I'm gonna forgive it. At this point, I'm like, yeah, okay, all right, fine. I love the film, and you've done a convincing enough job in the first 2 acts of this film up to the final act. I'm gonna forgive you, even if I know this is a little bit beyond the pale.
Absolutely. Russ says, thank you for a comment on the otherness of the Predator. It's a Lovecraftian moment. I can only make one more thing here, guys. We are going to wrap up the show. Despite all these non-rogue elements, at the end of the day, she returns to her tribe with the Predator's head.
Yes,
Focus on
because all the dudes were dead. They'd all died.
Yeah.
they were all killed
No one
protecting.
wants to acknowledge that they all died for her, guys. Absolutely rogue thinker. Guys, Russ, where can we find you on your website?
Just russellwhitfield.com, or email me at contact@russellwhitfield.com. But more
Yes.
importantly, where can we find you?
You can find me here on Positive Fandom. I have to wrap up the channel. I got like 30 seconds or else it won't post onto YouTube. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Please remember to be kind to each other out there, and we will catch you on the next broadcast. Thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson. We are all good people. Everybody, take care. Enjoy your day. Thank you so much. Always remember to be kind. Bye.